Hi, we are going to today talk about medical emergencies in intraoperative period. Mainly, we will be talking about hypertension, hypotension, bradycardia, and tachycardia. So, this is for BSc ATT students. So, what are the specific learning objectives? At the end of the session, student must be able to list the causes for intraoperative hypertension, hypotension, tachycardia, and bradycardia. Identify these emergencies and enumerate the steps of their management. So these are the specific learning objectives. Introduction. Cardiovascular emergencies are common during intraoperative period. More the comorbidities, more chances of these events. So sometimes there are sequels to the anesthesia and surgery rather than the complications. Means, for example, if you are giving regional anesthesia, the bradycardia or hypotension, they are the sequels. Okay, they are rather than you calling them as complication, they are sequels. So you have to expect these things during giving regional anesthesia. With the help of monitoring, these should be easily identifiable. So when you, as soon as we shift the patient inside, we connect ECG, NIBP, as well as pulse oximetry. So whenever you have these complications like bradycardia, tachycardia, something, it is easily identifiable if you are monitoring the patient continuously. Okay, so monitoring is very important. So apt response at the right time will prevent from major complications. So any of the complication, if sustained intraoperative period, should be evaluated postoperatively for finding out the cause. For example, there was a hypotension and you need to start an inotrope, okay, like a NORAD or dopamine. And in postoperative period also, the hypotension is continuing. Then you have to uh, take a 12 lead ECG, then you have to evaluate for any cardiac event. So you have to do 2D echo or you have to send for cardiac enzymes, such things. Okay, so patient should be evaluated in the post-operative period. Okay, ECG, echocardiography, angiography can be done. So now we will talk about hypertension, intraoperative hypertension. Blood pressure more than 160 mmHg systolic or more than 100 mmHg diastolic can be considered as hypertension. I mean intraoperative hypertension, or 20% rise in the pre-operative blood pressure level can also be considered as hypertension. 20% rise compared to the pre-operative blood pressure. For example, if the patient's blood pressure was 120 by 80, so anything about above 145 by say 150 by 100 can be called as intraoperative hypertension. More common in patients with the pre-existing hypertensive disease, but can also occur patient uh, any patient undergoing surgery. So, as I said, if the patient is having any pre-existing hypertension disease, okay, so patient is a chronic hypertensive patient on multiple antihypertensive drugs, then patients getting intraoperative hypertension chances are more. So, perioperative hypertension occurs mainly during induction of anesthesia, surgery and maintenance of anesthesia, and during extubation and postoperative period. So basically mainly happens during induction or extubation. In very common during extubation, hypertension you can see. Okay, postoperative period also you can see. So what are the risk factors? Risk factors are pre-existing hypertension. So especially diastolic hypertension is there if it is more than 110 mm of Hg. Okay, pre-existing cardiac disease, older age, okay, more common in male compared to female, obesity, smoking, diseases of autonomic nervous system. So any diseases pertaining to autonomic nervous system. Okay, diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus will cause autonomic neuropathy. That's why it is a risk factor. Okay, adrenal tumors. So they can release all these noradrenaline, adrenaline, such kind of things from the tumor cells. So they can give rise to intraoperative hypertension. Okay, renal disease. As you can see, any chronic renal disease patient, originally they will have hypertension. So this is also a risk factor. Type of anesthesia such as general anesthesia, because you will be handling with intubation. So intubation response will cause hypertension. Surgical factors such as cardiac surgery or vascular surgery, arterial surgeries. Okay, so they can cause hypertension. Okay, drugs, antihypertensive, antipsychotic. If the patient is on antihypertensive or antipsychotic drugs, that is also another risk factor. And one more is malignant hyperthermia, I think, which is covered in another topic. So I am not going to talk in detail about malignant hyperthermia. Okay, so and allergic conditions. So hypertensive crisis, you can define it as intraoperative blood systolic pressure more than 180 mm of Hg and diastolic more than 110 mm of Hg. We are talking about hypertensive crisis. If there is end organ damage, such as any like stroke or any damage to like liver, kidney, such this is called as hypertensive emergency. So immediate BP reduction is required in such cases. If there is no end organ damage, it can be called as hypertensive urgency. So rapid BP reduction is not required. You can slowly reduce the BP. So what are the hypertensive emergencies? So hypertensive encephalopathy, intracerebral hemorrhage, subarachnoid hemorrhage, stroke, hypertensive induced renal dysfunction, angina, myocardial infarct, aortic dissection. So any these hypertensive emergency are there, then you have to reduce rapid BP correction. So causes for perioperative hypertension. So you can list out few of the causes. For in that major one is inadequate anesthetic depth. Okay, so the whatever anesthesia you are giving is not enough for the patient. So or there can be inadequate analgesia, or there can be intubation response, or there can be pain. So all these things will cause what? Sympathetic stimulation. As you know, sympathetic stimulation will induce hypertension. Okay, sympathetic stimulation will release what? All this adrenaline. Okay, such kind of things, catecholamines. So that will further cause vasoconstriction. Okay, arterial constriction, which will induce hypertension. Okay, other causes are drug reaction. Say by mistake you have given ephedrine in place of vecuronium. You know, every day you load ephedrine along in the trolley. Okay, so by mistake thinking that it's vecuronium, you may give ephedrine. In that case, there can be hypertension. Okay, so then transfusion reaction, volume overload. If you give more IV fluids, the volume overload can cause hypertension. Okay, hypoxia, hyperthermia, or hypothermia. These things also can cause hypertension. Increased ICP, seizure. Okay, preeclampsia, eclampsia. All these can induce hypertension. Then malignant hyperthermia, surgery related, for example, laparoscopic surgery, vascular surgery, cardiac surgery, yeah, electroconvulsive therapy. Anxiety in patients can further increase chances of hypertension, metabolic response. Okay, so cardiac events, any MI or such things happen in drop, they can cause hypertension. And thyrotoxicosis. Thyrotoxicosis means patient who is having hyperthyroidism. Okay, more thyroid hormone will be released that can cause increased BP. Okay, hypertension. So presentation. So how this hypertension can present in a patient? Okay. So chest pain. These are all a patient is having in regional anesthesia. You will patient can complain chest pain, headache, okay, palpitation, such kind of thing. If patient is under GA, he won't complain anything. So you have to identify by looking at the monitor. Okay, increased BP will be there, or some signs will be there, such as stroke, pulmonary edema, such things will be there. So you have to identify with that. So effects of intraoperative hypertension. What are the effects? Okay, it can cause increased bleeding. Surgeon will start telling to reduce BP because he is not able to operate because of high bleeding. Okay, so then there can be a stroke, there can be intracranial hemorrhage, there can be myocardial infarct. Okay, so these are the effects of intraoperative hypertension. So how you are going to prevent? So what you have to do pre-operatively, you have to screen, you have to do a proper PSC, and you have to screen the patient for hypertension. Okay, either patient can be in chronic hypertensive patient, he will be on medication, so you have to take all the history. Okay, you have to check for now what is the exact BP of the person. Okay, whether he is now not under control, BP is not under control, or such things you have to check. Or patient may not be hypertensive before, but right now, first time he is getting diagnosed hypertension. So what you have to do is you have to take two more readings 6 hours apart. If two more readings 6 hours apart comes hypertensive, then you may have to start antihypertensive therapy pre-operatively for this patient. Okay, postpone patients with the hypertension till BP is under control. If it is an elective surgery, you can postpone. Okay, if it is emergency, then you have to take it up. Okay, you have to start antihypertensive therapy. The pre-medication, proper pre-medication you have to give, because patients having anxiety can have more chances of intraoperative hypertension. So proper pre-medication to reduce their anxiety you have to give, and adequate analgesia and anesthetic depth you have to provide. Okay, so avoiding intubation and extubation weapons. So we have many drugs which can prevent intubation response, such as you can give more opioids, you can give dexmedetomidine, magnesium sulfate, such kind of things. Okay, or you can give lignocaine, loxicard, okay, or esmolol, metoprolol, such things. So you can prevent intubation or extubation response. So how you are going to manage patients with intraoperative hypertension? You have to continuously monitor NIBP, preferably arterial blood pressure monitoring. If you can get a arterial line, measuring arterial blood pressure will be beneficial, because continuously you can see the change in BP. Okay, NIBP you have to every 1 minute, 2 minute, or 5 minute you have to press and you have to check. But arterial blood pressure will give you real time changes in blood pressure. Okay, so treatment goal should be based on patient's preoperative BP. You have to give 100% oxygen, increase the depth of anesthesia, check for medication error. Any by mistake you have given some wrong drug or something, you have to. check. Immediate goal should be to reduce BP by 10 to 15% to achieve a target of below 160 by 100 mm of Hg over a period of 30 minutes. Immediately, you cannot bring the BP down. You have slowly you have to bring it down. Abrupt reduction can interfere with the organ perfusion, so gradual reduction is advised. So antihypertensive. So what are the antihypertensive you can use? Beta blockers. So metoprolol, esmolol, labetalol, bolus infusion you can give. Vasodilators such as nitroglycerin, sodium nitroprusside, hydrolazine infusion you can give. Calcium channel blockers, example nifedipine, you get sublingual capsule. You can put that into sublingual, means below the tongue. Okay, so something called as phenol-dopam also available. AC inhibitor, you have enalapril, which can be used. Diuretics, furosemide you can give, furosemide Lasix. Okay, so you can. Then you have alpha 2 agonists such as clonidine, dexmedetomidine. These things also you can use to reduce intraoperative hypertension. So, conclusion of intraoperative hypertension, continuous monitoring of BP is mandatory intraoperative period. Early diagnosis and management can prevent major complications. Adequate precautions, adequate analgesia, and adequate anesthetic depth can prevent intraoperative hypertension. Now we move on to hypotension. Okay, intraoperative hypotension. So, introduction. Intraoperative hypotension, one of the major contributors for postoperative morbidity and mortality. If not recognized early and managed it early, can cause ischemic damage to major organs. Since anesthesia per se abolishes sympathetic response, GA and central neuraxial blocks itself can cause hypotension. So anesthesia, whatever you provide except for your nerve blocks or some local this one, the major anesthesia which we give like spinal or epidural, or GA, so itself will cause hypotension. So you can't actually, it's like a sequel. You will have hypotension, so you have to take precautions so that there should not be any hypotension. So how you can define? You can define it as commonly accepted definition include systolic blood pressure less than 80 mm of Hg, or mean arterial pressure is less than 60 mm of Hg, or you can tell like a decline of systolic blood pressure or mean arterial pressure by 20% from the baseline. So, blood pressure required to maintain adequate blood flow will vary from person to person. In normal young adult, systolic blood pressure of 70 to 80 mm of Hg will maintain adequate perfusion. This threshold will be increased in old age as well as patients with hypertension. For example, if say patients regular BP is 160 90, okay, systolic 160 and diastolic 90, so they can't tolerate a hypotension of 70 to 80 mm of Hg systolic. Okay, so their this one threshold is shifted to the upper side of the region. So you have to maintain little bit higher blood pressure for that patients. A reasonable aim to keep 70%, 75% of MAP intraoperative period. Okay, it is reasonable to keep that level. So what are the risk factors? Comorbidities such as hypertension, cardiac disease, diabetes mellitus, hypothyroidism, Addison's disease, etc. Hypovolemia, the causes for hypovolemia such as hemorrhage, dehydration, fluid loss, shock, etc. These can cause uh, hypotension intraoperatively. Anesthetic techniques such as central neuroaxial block, they can cause more hypotension compared to general anesthesia. So spinal or epidural will cause more hypotension compared to your general anesthesia. Okay, pregnancy, old age. So these are few of the risk factors. So what are the causes for hypertension? Anesthesia technique and drug. Okay, all the drugs except for all the induction drugs such as thiopentone, propofol, okay, midazolam. These all cause hypotension. Okay. Deep anesthesia, so you have kept deep anesthesia, it can also cause hypertension. Drug reaction, so histamine release due to some allergic reaction or drug reaction, it will lead to hypotension. Blood loss, fluid loss, allergic reaction, blood transfusion reaction, pulmonary embolism, surgery related such as cardiac or vascular surgery is going on. Pneumothorax will cause hypertension, heart failure, pericardial tamponade, endocrine dysfunction. So these are the few of the causes for intraoperative hypertension. So how it will present? It will present as tachycardia. That will be compensatory tachycardia. If the patient is conscious, then patient will have giddiness, altered mental status. The patient will start to behave very aggressive or very restless. Okay, and then you should consider the chances of hypotension. Okay, nausea, vomiting, agitation, chest pain, shortness of breath, oliguria. All these things you can see in case of hypertension. So how you are going to manage? Okay, administer IV fluid. So rapid administration of IV fluid. Check the medication error. Any medication error you, by mistake you have given any hypertensive drug. Give 100% oxygen. Reduce inhalational agent or total intravenous agent. Any hypertensive drugs if you are giving, reduce that. Establish one more IV line if needed, so that you can rush fluid or blood or something. Okay. Systemic vasoconstrictors you can give, such as ephedrine, methylphenidramine, phenylephrine bolus you can give. Or if the hypertension is persisting, you can start inotropes infusion. You can start noradrenaline, adrenaline, dopamine infusion, etc. So evaluate the cause and then treat. Okay, blood transfusion in case of bleeding. So this is how you have to manage hypertension. So how you are going to prevent hypertension? Preoperatively adequate fluid resuscitation you have to do. If you are giving say spinal anesthesia, you have to give some 500 ml of crystalloid before giving spinal anesthesia. So you have to maintain proper uh, fluid in the body. Okay, so what is the cause for hypertension in spinal anesthesia or epidural anesthesia? It is due to loss of sympathetic because of the block of the sympathetic chain. So what it will cause? It will cause vasodilation, and there will be peripheral pooling of blood. It will cause lesser venous return to the heart, and thus it will cause hypertension. So how you can prevent hypertension? By giving proper fluid and maintaining uh, fluid volume in the body. So appropriate fluid and blood replacement intraoperatively, continuous blood pressure, NABP, arterial BP for real-time monitoring. Okay. Repeatedly check pulse volume and urine output. Use drugs causing hypotension cautiously. So now we will go to intraoperative tachycardia. So, heartbeat more than 100 per minute can be considered as tachycardia. Tachycardia is one of the most commonest presentation intraoperative period. Grossly, tachycardia can be divided into narrow complex tachycardia and wide complex tachycardia. Narrow complex means in ECG there will be QRS complex. If QRS complex means like its character is maintained uh, and it is narrow, it is called as narrow complex tachycardia. If the QRS complex character is not maintained and it is wide, means wide or have hazard, it is called as wide complex tachycardia. So what are the causes? Causes are similar to all those which cause hypertension or hypertension. A patient with the cardiac disease, hypercapnia, acidosis, electrolyte abnormality, endocrine disease, stress, anxiety, surgery related, for example, laparoscopic or cardiac surgery, okay, fever, pain, metabolic response, sepsis, hypothermia, drugs causing tachycardia, for example, atropine, glycopyrrolate, sympathomimetics like ephedrine, methylphenidramine, okay, inotropes such as adrenaline, dopamine, okay, ketamine, beta agonists, these can cause tachycardia. So withdrawal of drugs such as if the patient is hypertensive and the patient is on clonidine, if you don't give clonidine, okay, so withdrawal of those drugs can cause tachycardia. Or patient is having arrhythmia itself can cause tachycardia. Okay, so how we are going to manage the condition? So first oxygen supplementation, find out the cause. Okay, if there is hypertension, okay, so give volume resuscitation, maintain normothermia. So for symptomatic relief, you can use drugs such as beta blockers, dexmedetomidine. Okay, or if all these things fail, you can do a medical cardioversion. Okay, electrolyte balance, if there is a problem with electrolyte balance, maintain that. Acid base correction you can do. Okay, if patient is hemodynamically unstable, you can do DC cardioversion. Okay, cardioversion, what you are going to do is you are going to give a synchronized shock to the heart so that the heart rate comes to normal. So, as I told, there are two types of tachycardia, you can tell, narrow complex tachycardia and wide complex tachycardia. If QRS complex is less than, what is QRS complex? As you know, in ECG, there is a P wave, Q wave, then R wave, S wave, right? So, this QRS is together called as QRS complex. So, QRS complex uh, will indicate the contract means electrical activity in left means ventricles. Okay, so in narrow complex normally it is up to 120 millisecond. If QRS complex is less than 120 millisecond, then it is called as narrow complex tachycardia. If it is more than 120 milliseconds, it is called as wide complex tachycardia. So how it will present? It will present as hypotension, palpitation, altered mental status, plus chest pain, etc. From where this narrow complex tachycardia arises? Narrow complex tachycardia arises within the normal conductive system. As you can, as you know, so how conductive system of heart is there. Okay, so from SA node there will be um, this impulse generation, then it will come from SA node, it will come to AV node. From AV node, it will go to the Purkinje fibers and bundle of His. Okay, so so anything means in this normal conductive system, any generation of arrhythmia, then it will cause narrow complex tachycardia. So anywhere other than this normal conductive system, if there is impulse generation, then it will cause wide complex tachycardia. So what are the types of narrow complex tachycardia? That will be sinus tachycardia, arterial tachycardia, WPW syndrome, atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation. Okay, so these are the example. Okay, so wide complex tachycardia, all is your ventricular tachycardia, supraventricular tachycardia with aberrant conduction, polymorphic VT, okay, uh, atrial flutter fibrillation with aberrant conduction. So these are the examples. So how you are going to treat narrow complex tachycardia? By carotid massage, then adenosine 6 mg rapid IV we push. Okay, so if after 5 minutes if there is no this one, you can repeat the dose again. Okay, and treat find out the cause and treat the cause. If drug therapy you are not able to maintain the means convert it to normal this one, you start give cardioversion. Okay, cardio wide complex tachycardia. So mainly it will be like VFPT. So it is more complicated thing. So give a cardio version if hemodynamic unstable, or else you can give amiodarone 150 mg IV over 10 minutes and repeat as needed. Okay, lignocaine also you can use 1 mg per kg IV, repeat every 0.5 mg per kg if needed. Okay, so now we will go to bradycardia. Okay, intraoperative bradycardia. Heart rate less than 60 beats per minute can be as dangerous as it can cause cardiac arrest if not treated immediately. Okay, so continuous monitoring of ECG pulse during intraoperative period will warn against bradycardia. It can accompany along with the hypertension. Okay, so hypertension and bradycardia sometimes occur together. So how it is going to present? It will present as hypertension, nausea, altered mental status of chest pain, okay, etc. It can present like this. Okay, so what are the causes? So drug effects or drug side effects such as if you are using beta blocker, alpha 2 agonists such as clonidine, dexmedetomidine, okay, calcium channel blockers, opioids, okay, all these things will cause bradycardia. So central neuroaxial block, when you give, if spinal goes up, goes above your T4 level, then there can be bradycardia. So high spinal, total spinal can cause bradycardia. Vagal stimulation, so surgery related. For example, they are doing a laparotomy and they are dragging um, uh, um, any organ or stomach, intestine. So it can cause vehicle stimulation. It can cause bradycardia. Okay, pain also can cause bradycardia. Hypertension, hypersensitivity to carotid sinus. Okay, so or oculocardiac reflex. So oculocardiac reflex means during your ocular surgeries, if they pull this ocular muscles, it can cause vagal stimulation and it can cause bradycardia. Okay, so then hypoxia, acidosis, electrolyte imbalance, cardiac tamponade, arrhythmias, cardiac abnormalities, all this can cause bradycardia. So how you are going to manage? So ask the surgeon to stop immediately, give 100% oxygen, injection atropine, 0.6 mg stat IV you can give, and you can repeat if there is no response. If no response with the atropine, then immediately you have to do a transcutaneous pacing. Okay, you are going to put a, pacing device through IJV to the heart, and you are going to start increasing the heart rate. Okay, injection adrenaline 2 to 10 microgram per minute can also you can start if your bradycardia is not responding to atropine. So conclusion, intraoperative emergency could be identified immediately and should be managed very means as emergency you have to manage them. Continuous monitoring will help to identify immediately. Preparedness and early intervention will prevent postoperative morbidity and mortality. So in the exam, what are the questions you can expect? You can expect short note on any of these four topics: intraoperative hypertension, hypotension, bradycardia, and tachycardia. So if you write what uh, I have written in the PPT, that will be enough. You will get 5 marks questions on any of these topics. Okay, all the best. Learn well. Okay, these are our my references from where I have prepared this topic. Okay, thank you very much.